News. But now let's talk about the latest round of talks aimed at opening up trade between the EU and America. It's got the catchy title of the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or TTIP. Talks start again today, but they do open in the wake of protests in the UK over the weekend and in the shadow of a row over espionage in Germany that's seen the expulsion of the top American intelligence officer in Berlin. So, how will these talks go today? Let's speak to Dr. Stephanie Hare, who's a senior analyst at Oxford Analytica. Thanks for being on the programme. What are your expectations?
Well, this is the sixth round of these talks, and they are starting off in a really strained atmosphere between the United States and Germany over the espionage scandals of the past few weeks. Last week, we saw Berlin request that the top CIA official leave Germany. And we've had accusations, allegations even, of spying within both German intelligence and the German Defense Ministry. And of course, this follows on from already strained relations over the spying from the the NSA. So after Edward Snowden's revelations from last year, the climate in Germany was already very strained. So to have these two things right before these talks start really gets them off on a bad tone.
Also, as well, relations between France and the US has not been fantastic with regards to these trade talks. A lot of protectionism seemed to be ongoing. One of the issues that those who are protesting about these talks is saying is that they're all going on in secret anyway. There's no real transparency about this process. What would you say about that?
I think that's that's the nature of the beast with trade talks. I mean, the United States is also, for instance, in negotiations to have a Trans-Pacific partnership with 11 other countries in the Pacific. That obviously is also being conducted in secret, and that's a problem that's been cited in the U.S. Congress. So that's a bit the nature of the beast, unfortunately, with these negotiations. They're being leaked, though, a lot of these talks, and that's what I find very interesting.
And in terms of what we do know about what's on the agenda, how will they overcome, as you say, the difficulty in the relations anyway, because of what's going on between Germany and the US, etc., but also as well the old chestnut-like farming and other areas of trade which are always really difficult to overcome?
Well, I think you've really hit the nail on the head with farming, because that reflects so much a cultural difference between how food and agriculture are viewed within the United States and the various EU member states. So one of the contentious issues, of course, is about genetically modified foods and whether or not they are labeled appropriately in order to let consumers know. In Europe, there's a very strong backlash against GM foods, and that labeling and consumer protection is very strong here and very valued, to the point that it almost doesn't even matter if you label the foods, because stores simply won't stock them because they know consumers don't want them. In the United States, this is less the case. So that's going to be an issue of where I think you would probably have to see some compromise, but where it almost might not even matter. Of greater importance and much greater controversy will be things like whether or not they include data protection controls. That is a direct result of the Edward Snowden revelations. Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany herself, last year asked that this be put into the free trade agreement talks. Now, the United States obviously doesn't want this. They want this to be done separately. There are some leaders within Europe who also want this done separately, to be negotiated on its own. But the fact that that's already being put in shows how much work they have to do. And of course, they were hoping to have this deal agreed by the end of this year or at the beginning of 2015 at the earliest. That now looks wildly optimistic.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Stephanie Hare, for joining us from our Oxford Bureau. Oxford Analytica, of course, as she's outlined, an awful lot of work to do.